Hinenu, here we are. Hinenu, here we are together again, mostly after a year of tragedies and triumphs. Hinenu, here we are, though those who may have sat next to us last year are missing this year. Hinenu, we are here a little more whole than we were a year ago. Hinenu, we are here a little more broken by the year we leave behind. 5784 has been a hard year. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling the brokenness, the challenges, and the tensions more acutely this year. There is so much anger and pain and suffering in our world. The war in Ukraine rages on after 2.5 years with no end in sight. Here in the United States, as we near a contentious election, political polarization has me worried for our country and the future of civil discourse. In our Jewish world, the Israel-Hamas war rages on, with tensions in the north escalating day by day, Iranian missiles raining down on Israel earlier this week. Anti-Semitism has skyrocketed. Our students from elementary school through college are telling us about more and more anti-Jewish incidents than ever before. I worry that this terrible war, though perhaps necessary, and the agonizing loss of thousands of innocent lives will continue to do for our own sense of humanity. And at Beth Am, our synagogue community, meant to be a place of shelter from life's storms, we've experienced more challenge and upheaval. And I've heard too many stories from people who feel like they can no longer talk to the people who were once their closest friends. It breaks my heart. And I know for so many, the broader challenges in our world, our country, and our Jewish community pale in comparison to their own personal struggles and losses. I have sat with you and walked through difficult losses with many of you as you've battled serious illness or said goodbye to loved ones. It's been a hard year for me too. Since last Rosh Hashanah, I've lost 3 close family members: my grandmother Dorothy, my uncle Marshall, and my cousin Matthew, just a couple of years younger than me, who lost his battle with addiction. These were the people who played such central roles in my childhood, who helped shape the person I am today. Matt and I grew up together. We used to wrestle down my parents' hallway when we were kids. We had just sat together at last year's Passover Seder. It's hard to believe he's gone. But today, carrying all of this brokenness with me, I am saying Hineni. I am here. I am present. I am with you. Indeed, these high holy days call each of us to say Hineni. I am here. I am present. Behold me. In our Torah reading this morning, we'll read the powerful and painful story of Abraham's near sacrifice of his son Isaac. In so many ways, it is the story of how one man responds to an impossible call. Does he choose his faith or his family? Does he heed God's call or Isaac's? It is not an easy story to digest. Every year, I struggle to understand Abraham's ability to follow God's call. But as I read it this year, I found myself focusing on one word in particular, which Abraham utters 3 times in this story in response to 3 distinct calls. Hineni, here I am here. As the 10th century French commentator Rosh observes, Hineni is the answer of the pious. It is an expression of humility and readiness. Abraham's first Hineni is in response to God's call. Sometime afterward, God put Abraham to the test, saying to him, Abraham. He answered, Hineni, I am here. Before even hearing what the test would be, Abraham responds with eagerness and obedience. Whatever the challenge, he is up for it. Only then does God explain Abraham's assignment. take your son, your favored one, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on the altar, on one of the heights that I will point out to you." We don't get to see Abraham's response. Does he weep? Does he sit down to catch his breath? Does he scream back at God? Does he try to bargain as he did for the people of Sodom and Gomorrah? Does he react at all? All we know of Abraham's response comes in the next verse, when we see him rising early the next morning, saddling his donkey, and setting out with Isaac, the fruit of his old age, the promise of his future, to follow God's command. Abraham's first Hineni is the catalyst of a journey. Abraham's second Hineni comes in the middle of his journey. This time it is Isaac that calls out to him. Isaac said to his father Abraham, "Avi, my father." And he answered, "Hineni bani, I am here, my son." And he said, "Here are the firestone and the wood, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering?" And Abraham said, "It is God who will see to the sheep for this burnt offering, my son." And the two of them walked on together. Here, Abraham responds to the call of his son. But is it the response of an attentive father, something along the lines of, "I am here, my son, and I hear the worry and fear in your voice. What can I do to comfort you?" Or is it simply a dismissive, "I'm right here," suggesting that Abraham is still too focused on the journey ahead and the task at hand to emotionally invest in what his son needs most in this moment? How many times have we answered our children with the latter? Rather than leaning in and taking the time to really be present in the moment, to engage in the relationship, to look at the drawings, to investigate the story behind a disappointing grade, to catch the subtle quiver in their voice when they mention a concern about a friend. Rabbi Norman J. Cohen, a leading 20th century Reformed Jewish scholar in Midrash, sees Abraham's response to his son as being genuinely present in the moment. He suggests that in this context, Hineni means being ready to respond within the context of relationship, regardless of the nature of the request. Hineni can teach us about the very essence of relationship, teaches Cohen, about our relationships, not only with God, but with other human beings as well. Abraham, Cohen explains, responds to his son as he responded to God. Hineni, here I am for you. When we respond to those we love, teaches Cohen, our parents, our spouses, or our children, it is tantamount to responding to the highest call. In Abraham's case, there is little he can do for Isaac, other than simply reassuring him through his presence. Perhaps that is all he really needed. Abraham's final Hineni comes at the climax of this story. He is standing over his son, tied upon the altar, knife in hand, plunging towards his son's chest. In that dreadful moment, an angel of God calls out to Abraham, "Abraham, Abraham!" And Abraham answers, "Hineni, here I am." Over the millennia, our sages have asked why the angel calls Abraham's name twice. After all, at the beginning of the story, Abraham's to respond quickly to God's call, responding with immediacy to just one utterance of his name. A number of commentators suggest that the angel calls Abraham's name twice here because he is so preoccupied with fulfilling this task. He's so hyper-focused on fulfilling his commandment that he's not paying attention to anything else around him. Hence the need for calling out twice. As one 19th century commentator explains, since Abraham was immersed in the enthusiasm of the deed and so almost devoid of his physical senses, it was necessary to stop him with an alarming voice before he would turn back to listen. How many times in our own lives have we been so focused on getting that one thing done that we missed out on the subtle beauty all around us? Our kids showing off their latest creation, our spouse needing comfort after a difficult day, our bodies telling us to ease off the throttle. What would it take to shake us awake, for us to respond Hineni? How do we want to respond to the different calls in our own lives in this coming year? How do we want to show up for the people that matter most to us? How do we say Hineni to each other? How do we say Hineni even when, especially when, it is most difficult? It is certainly not always easy. So often in our lives, there are so many competing factors vying for our attention: deadlines at work, family obligations, attempting to maintain a social life, the needs of our children or grandchildren or parents or friends, competing calendars of commitments. It's easy to start to feel overwhelmed. But during these high holy days, we have this beautiful gift, an incredible opportunity, an invitation, a call to look carefully at our past year, to acknowledge the ways in which we have shown up, have said Hineni, and also to admit where we have missed the mark, the ways in which we fell short. Willing to put the past aside to try to start anew, as we are called to do in these days of turning. We are called to turn over a new leaf, to give ourselves permission to try taking a new approach when our old ways of doing things are no longer working or satisfying. This year, I have said Hineni for my family, officiating at funeral services for my cousin Matt and most recently my grandmother Dorothy. It was a painful honor to be able to hold my family through the pain of those losses, to be fully present and offer the beautiful scaffolding our tradition provides to help hold us up and walk us through our most difficult days. I said Hineni at my son Elon's bar mitzvah, celebrating with the fullness of love and pride in my son, and joy in my heart at having my family, my friends, so many of you from this congregation who showed up and supported us and him and celebrated with us. I have said Hineni as I've leaned into a sense of calling in this moment at Beth Am, in this moment in my rabbinate, taking on new roles here and building new relationships as we've navigated this moment of transition together. And there are so many ways in which all of you have said Hineni this year, here at Beth Am. You say Hineni when you send a friend a sympathy card or make a phone call after the death of their loved one. You say Hineni when you offer to help in the office or support the clergy and staff. You say Hineni when you generously give your time and your money to make sure Beth Am remains strong. You say Hineni when you trust us to educate your children, or when you bring yourself to study something new, or attend a lecture or a Shabbat service for the sake of your own spiritual growth. You say Hineni as you show up at our weekly Israel discussion group, carving out a safe and sacred space to process this terrible war. You say Hineni when you step up to bake and deliver honey cakes to our older members, especially when your rabbi calls you in the 11th hour. You say Hineni when you voice your frustration or your disagreement, demonstrating your love and commitment to this place. We have a long history here at Beth Am, this house of the people, of so many of our congregants showing up and saying Hineni. I am here for you. We are here for each other. How can we help? Imagine what our Beth Am community might look like if we really lean in and make a commitment to saying Hineni in this coming year for our family and friends, for our most cherished relationships, for each other, and for our temple family too. How do we build a community in which our culture is to show up, to say Hineni for each other, to celebrate with each other in good times, and to hold and model caring for each other in the difficult times? Nearly 2 millennia ago, The rabbis of the Mishnah imagined a powerful ritual that took place during the pilgrimage festivals in the temple in Jerusalem. If you've ever been to the southern excavation site around the corner from the Western Wall in Jerusalem, you may have seen the two archways through which pilgrims would enter. Most pilgrims would enter through the door on the right, moving counterclockwise through the temple courtyard. Picture thousands upon thousands of pilgrims streaming in one direction, except, the rabbis teach, for those for whom something difficult had happened. Someone grieving, someone sick, someone who is lonely. Those individuals would go in the door to the left, moving clockwise through the temple courtyard, against the current of the thousands of other pilgrims. The Mishnah explains that it was understood that whenever a pilgrim encountered one of these individuals, they were to ask them, "Why are you going in the opposite direction?" To which a person might reply, "Because I am a mourner." One responds to that individual saying, "Hashochein babayit hazeh yenachamecha." May the one who dwells in this house comfort you. As Rabbi Sharon Brous teaches, those who walked from right to left, each one of them looked into the eyes of the ill, the bereft, and the bereaved. May God comfort you, they would say, one by one. And may you be wrapped in the embrace of this community. 2,000 years ago, teaches Rabbi Brous, the rabbis constructed a system of ritual engagement built on a profound psychological insight. When you're suffering, when your loved one hovers between life and death, when you feel hemmed in by the darkness, when all you want is to self-isolate because who would understand anyway, you show up. You root your suffering in a context of care. Imagine if in the coming year we commit today to really showing up, to saying to each other, Hineni, I am here, with all of my flaws and my features, my imperfections and my brokenness, and I am saying to you, I am here for you. I am here with you. What might this community, built upon that spirit, look like? How might that love and presence reverberate throughout our lives, our families, our communities, and our world? What might our relationships with our friends and our family look like if we were to say, Hineni, I am here. I will be with you no matter what. Shana tova umetuka. Please, God, may this be a good year, a sweeter year, a year that brings peace in which we can truly be present for each other. Hashochein babayit hazeh yenachamecha. May the one who dwells in this house comfort you in this new year.